revenge through circumcision, it's a really interesting chapter. And I've tried really hard through the book of Genesis, and I'm going to continue to try very hard to keep this as PG as possible. But I'm telling you what, folks, there's some parts of the Bible that just get rather explicit. And this particular chapter deals with some issues that parents, after you've watched this, you may have to spend a little time with Johnny and Susie and explain exactly what took place back in the culture of that particular day. But Genesis 34, really important chapter. We're going to cover it, and we'll see how we kind of step through this gently, depending upon the audience. I want to be as careful as I can. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's do this. All right. Here, oh, my thingy, but dingy. Seems like I got to get it started, and then after that, it doesn't. There's your 10 questions, folks. And again, look at here. What is with Sonny Childs? I don't know why I did change it. It's 34, not 32 and 33. Ah! Oh, man. Anyhow, 34. We're in chapter 34, my friends. There's your questions. Chapter 1, creation. 2, retelling of creation. 3, fall of man. Canaan kills Abel. 5, Adam and Noah. Then we're going to start building the big boat, or at least get the instructions in chapter 6. Chapter 7, the flood. Get off the boat. 9, we got the covenant. 10, descendants. But then they gather at the Tower of Babel. 12, Abram's called to go to Canaan land, which is the promised land. Abram and Lot separate. Then Lot has to get rescued by Abraham. The covenants begin to be formatted between God and Abraham. It's going to end up becoming the Jewish nation. In between, we've got the birth of Ishmael, who's still causing trouble even today. Abraham's 3 visitors. Notice the name has been changed. They're going to destroy Sodom because they find that it is just as wicked as the prayers that have been coming up to God and have been telling him. Abraham is going to call his wife his sister, which is only a half-truth. Birth of Isaac. Abraham sacrifices Isaac, death of Sarah, and the wife for Isaac. Then we find, come on, here we go. Chapter 25, midway point, Abraham's going to die. Jacob is going to be born, and he's second to Esau. God's going to bless Isaac, the father of Jacob. Jacob is going to trick Isaac into giving him Esau's blessing. Jacob has to run from camp. On the journey, he's going to have the vision of the ladder into heaven. And then we've got Jacob is going to get married, going to have 2 wives. Remember, he's tricked into that first one. 11 sons of Jacob are going to be born. And then we're going to see him flee with his family from Laban, Uncle Laban's house, going back home. Jacob returns. Jacob on the way home, he's going to wrestle, you might recall, with the angel, and his name's going to be changed to Israel. Big thing there, because that name continues to resonate even today. Jacob is going to reunite with Esau, and then chapter 34, we're going to see that Dinah is, and I'm going to say humiliated. It's actually used that way. That's the term that is actually used in the ESV, and so we're going to keep it that way. And again, let mamas and daddies deal with this whole process at their own time. With regards to how they're going to describe the various events of chapter 34. Now, we are going to look at it verse by verse, and so be aware of that, moms and dads. All right. Dinah is humiliated. I thought Gabriel did an absolutely phenomenal job on this particular clue. Really hard one, because as you can imagine, you know, those of us who are adults, we know what she's trying to describe without really being explicit about it. So anyhow, you got Dinah here, and she's kind of covering her mouth like, oh, you know, because of what has taken place to her, with her. And then we've got the circumcision. You got the blood here that's okay. And so 34 tells the story quite graphically. The picture does, without being too graphic. I thought Gabriel, that's probably one of my favorite clues because of the time and the meditation it took on getting that one right. When Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, he seized her. That's important. He seized her, he lay with her, and he humiliated her. And so that's why we call it Dinah being raped in this particular chapter. All right, let's just move right into the text then. Now, Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the women of the land. Now, we need to pause here for just a second and consider what all's going on. Remember, we've talked a lot about the 12, or up to this point, the 11 sons of Jacob. We'll eventually get Benjamin in there, and then we've got 12 sons. But there's not a lot of information about Dinah. In fact, she gets born and we skip right over her pretty much to move on to other things. But in this chapter, we're going to have an entire chapter dedicated to Dinah and this tragic experience that takes place. Honestly, I don't know the innocence level on Dinah's part. I'm going to say that we need to assume right up front innocence, okay? But I do find that this is an interesting opening, that she has gone to look at the other women of the land. I'm not saying that it necessarily has to be this way, but it sounds to me like that she has kind of walked off to kind of, Maybe she just wanted to make friends. Let's be as innocent as possible. Maybe she's just trying to, go out and see what's happening in the culture of that particular area, etc. But remember, they're kind of vagabonds. They move from place to place, that kind of thing. And so whatever the case is, Dinah wants to go exploring. She wants to go see her surroundings, okay? Probably would have been wise, given the culture back in the day, if she'd had some male escorts with her, but she didn't. And however you play that out, I'm not trying to lay any of the burden on Dinah, except to say that even in today's world, maybe more so in today's world, given the horrible, horrible things that are going on, all of us need to use as much of the brain that God has given us as possible. Protect ourselves, keep ourselves from situations where we could find ourselves in harm's way, etc., etc. And so daddies, mamas, we need to make sure that we're raising up our young ladies as well as our young men to be very, very careful in the culture in which we now live. Whatever's taking place here, Dinah has gone to look at the other women of the land. She's going to go exploring, okay? Verse 2, we get into the tragedy. It's our memory verse. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, now remember, that's a very important guy. He seems to be the ruler of the area. When Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, he seized her. So that's where you get the rape concept, okay? He's going to grab her, he's going to seize her, he's going to lay with her, we know what that means, and he's going to humiliate her because the whole process is rather humiliating. So in that, I think it has to be implied then that whatever's taking place here, this is Shechem doing it to Dinah. Dinah, I don't believe, is volunteering. I don't believe that this is a consent kind of a thing that's taking place, any of that. It's tragic for Dinah. And her brothers, by the way, they're going to get justice here. Not that that can ever reverse the clock, but they're going to get justice at the end of this passage. But he seizes her and he lays with her. But the thing that's interesting about this passage is that it sounds like the rest of it, that after doing this heinous thing, he's actually going to fall in love with her. And he lays with her, he humiliates her. And his soul, in verse 3, and his soul was drawn to Dinah. So right out the gate, we get this whole idea that after the rape occurs, that now he falls deeply in love with her, and he wants to do the right thing, if you want to call it that. He wants to make her his wife. And so he loved the young woman, and he spoke tenderly to her. So again, I'm just trying to fill in the gaps in between, but it sounds like that the rape takes place, and then following the rape, he is very gentle, kind, tender-hearted, speaking sweet things into her ears, all of those kind of things, because he's very tender to her. He spoke tenderly to her. He wants her to be his wife, okay? So Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, get me this girl for my wife. And so now it has gone to a place where Shechem has asked his dad, who is the ruler of the area, he's the big guns. He said, Dad, I want to marry that woman. Now, you keep listening. I'm going to turn the air conditioner back on. When we understand what's happening here, it could be that he really, truly, is in love with her, as the text seems to indicate. So I'm going to assume that is the case. But it also could be that he's feeling the guilt, the shame of what he has done, and he's hoping that in the process he can make it all right. It happens even in our culture today when two individuals, do what they should not be doing, and the young lady gets pregnant, and so they decide they're going to rush into a marital situation, trying to do the best thing possible. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that's a bad idea. I'm just saying that it doesn't in any way sweep under the carpet the mistake that has been made. All right, and there needs to be accountability for it. Verse 5, now Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter. So Jacob's going to get wind of this. Okay, now Jacob's not a slouch of a man either. And Jacob also a power player in the area. He learns of that, but here's the deal. His sons were with his livestock in the field, so Jacob held his peace until they came. Because Jacob, as is the case back in the day with a big family, you almost got the Cartwrights in mind, although it had been a bigger family than that. But, this whole idea of kind of ruling the valley, the area, the land, because you got many men in the camp. And a lot of these men have evidently probably started their own families. And so we got a bunch of folks that are under the patriarchal authority of Jacob. So when the boys get home, we'll deal with this. So Jacob puts it on the back burner until the boys get home, and they're out in the field taking care of the livestock. Well, I guess maybe in the meantime, Hamor, the father of Shechem, is going to come to Jacob and he's going to speak with him. about the whole process, what has taken place, etc. And it says the sons of Jacob had come in from the field as soon as they heard of it, and the men were indignant and very angry because he had done an outrageous thing in Israel by laying with Jacob's daughter, for such a thing must not be done. A couple things really quickly. So we got Hamor. So the two daddies are going to talk about the situation. And, hey, we got to deal with this situation. Somewhere along the line, the brothers come home. They are indignant. They've evidently heard about it while they're out in the field. And so they're rushing home. Our little sister has been defiled. This is not good. This is not going to stand up well. The other thing that we need to see here that I found rather intriguing. Notice this says because he had done an outrageous thing in Israel. Here we have one of the first usages of the new name of Jacob. And it seems to be implying that this area in which Jacob is living is now referred to as Israel. It's maybe one of the first references of a land area being referred to in that way. I suppose it could also represent just in the fact that it's in his family, in the family of Israel, that kind of a thing. But it's one of the first usages that we actually have of the name Israel, that of course was given to him by the angel that he wrestled with, in the previous chapter. Okay, was that the previous chapter? Seemed like it was 33. No, it's 32, wasn't it? All right. So the sons come home. What are we going to do? And you're going to find out. And it's rather interesting. But Hamor spoke to them, saying, now you got to appreciate old Hamor. He may have had a troop of a gang of men behind him as well, but at least he's doing the right thing. He's going to go and he's going to speak. He's going to talk to the brothers as well. He's talked to the daddy. Now he's going to talk to the brothers. And I have a great deal of respect for that. People who are too cowardly to actually go and to deal with other individuals, they don't deserve a place of leadership. I've had individuals in my own life, folks who were very, very close to me, who harmed me, hurt me, and never would come to me and deal with the situation. Never brought it up. I've approached them on many occasions, but they wouldn't come to me. It's cowardly, okay? But Hamor at least has enough backbone to say, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to approach this thing. So he does. And he goes and he says to everyone that's listening, the soul of my son Shechem belongs to your daughter. That's a good phraseology, actually, okay? Because back in the day, it was more the woman belongs to the man. All right? But in this phraseology, Hamor is going to say, the heart that my son has, it belongs to your daughter. And you got to see how he's spinning this thing. Please give her to him to be his wife. And did you notice how the phraseology here? His heart belongs to her, but we need you to give her to him. It's a little bit upside down, but anyhow, it is what it is. Make marriages with us. Now, that's a very important transition because I want you to notice what's happening here. Really, what Hamor is suggesting is more than just a marriage between Shechem and Dinah. He's actually talking about a blending of two people. Okay, now this isn't going to happen, but this is a blending of two people groups. Okay, two tribes, if you will, that are going to come together, intermarry, and of course, within the intermarrying, then becomes a shared value system, because my daughter was married to your son, or vice versa. And so you can see it later in the kingdoms that come on, with regards to even Solomon. He's going to marry many brides from many places, in hopes that by marrying somebody from their culture, that we can establish a peace between us and there'll be somewhat of a blending. Well, this is going to be much more of a blending than in Solomon's day. But here, let our two peoples come together. And so let's intermarry, make marriages with us. Give your daughters to us and take our daughters for yourself. You should dwell with us and the land should be open to you. Dwell and trade in it and get property in it. So in other words, let's come together and you'll be just like we are, and have control over this particular land. Shechem also said to his father and to her brothers. So that's interesting that Shechem comes along. That again, there's courage in that. Here's the guy who probably feels like he could be slaughtered right on the spot, and yet he shows up to give his explanation. He said, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and whatever you say to me, I will give. Ask me for as great a bride price and gift as you will, and I will give whatever you say to me. Only give me the young woman to be my wife." And so he says, look, I really want to marry your sister, your daughter. And so you ask it, and I'll do my best to make sure that I give you whatever you desire, because I really want to marry Dinah. Now, again, I think there's two things happening here. It seems, given the text, it seems that he is primarily in love with her. He just really loves her. But secondarily, he knows he messed up, and he messed up in a big way. And so he's trying to make things right. I respect that. Okay. I don't respect any of the process, what took place, but I respect the fact that he at least is taking responsibility, unlike so many people do today. A lot of times the guys today, what do? They get a girl pregnant, and they just want to run off. It's not my child. That takes a DNA test, and even at that point, they're going to deny it, and they're not going to take care of their child. Verse 13. The sons of Jacob answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceitfully. All right, so they're going to give an answer. Now, did they have time to get off and kind of put it together in their mind and all that kind of thing? Probably, okay. We don't have the background here. But whatever took place, the sons of Jacob are going to come together and they're going to say, guys, here's what we need to do. And it's an interesting deception. Very, very sad, but it's an interesting deception. They said to them, we cannot do this thing. That is, give our sister Dinah to you. We can't do this thing to give our sister to the one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a disgrace to us. See, they're going to enter in with the circumcision thing. And so they're going to tie this all the way back to great grandpa Abraham. I don't know how far, because remember, that's where the circumcision thing comes in, right? And so this whole idea, we're all circumcised, you're not, we can't do this because of that. Knowing full well in their mind, I think, the Shechem's going to say, well, I'll do that. Whatever, to get your sister. Only on this condition will we agree with you, that you will become as we are by every male among you being circumcised. So the whole group has got to get circumcised. Now, I don't want to deal with circumcision in any great depth. Again, I'm trying to do my best to keep this as PG as possible, but I want you to understand, those of you who know what circumcision is, and those of you who don't, it's a very painful process, especially for men later in life. That's why babies generally are circumcised. Male babies are circumcised early in life. I'm not saying it's not painful to them, but what I'm saying is by the time it's done, you don't remember it. But boy, I tell you what, for males that are older, this is a very painful process, especially when you understand the way they did it back in the day. All right, again, not going too deep into that, all right? But consider your clue, okay? The way it took place back in the day, all right? So it's not a pleasant thing to go through. But I want you to notice how far Shechem, Hamor, and the rest of the guys are willing to go to make this blending of two people. In fact, they're going to describe it themselves here in just a second. All right, so we need you to be circumcised if you want this thing to happen. Then we will give our daughters to you, and we'll take your daughters to ourselves, and we will dwell with you and become one people. So we'll make the blending complete. But if you'll not listen to us and become circumcised, then we're going to take our daughter, and we'll be gone. So you either do what we've asked, or we're out of here. Verse 18. Their words pleased Hamor and Hamor's son Shechem. And the young man did not delay to do the thing because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. Again, another illustration that this isn't just for the purpose of covering something up. This is, I think he really loved Dinah. So he's willing to do this thing. And again, a very painful process. Now he was the most honored of all his father's house. And so you begin to see why it's such a big deal. Shechem is evidently the leading son. He's the favored son. It's kind of like if you want to go with Joseph on the other side of the fence, okay? And so he's the leading son, and so folks are going to follow after him because of who he is. He's very powerful. So Hamor and his son Shechem came to the gate of their city and spoke to the men of their city, saying, now this is really interesting. So it's not just Hamor and not just his family, immediate family, Shechem, etc. He's going to convince the entire city of men to get circumcised. These men are at peace with us, they said. Let them dwell in the land and trade in it. And behold, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters as wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition will the men agree to dwell with us and become one people. That's the blending, to become one people. When every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. Watch it, verse 23. Will not their livestock, their property, and all their beasts be ours? One of the underlying themes or motives of this whole thing is if we blend, we're going to become a powerful blending because they got a lot of stuff, folks. And if they bring their stuff in to mix with our stuff, we're going to become a pretty powerful. It's very much Babel-like, excuse me, and how the folks came together and they had this this carnal decision that if we could just come together in this manner, that we could become powerful on our own. Okay? So, will not their stuff become our stuff? Only let us agree with them, and they will dwell with us. And all who went out of the gate of his city listened to Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male was circumcised, all who went out of the gate of his city. Out of the gate, that's just a way of saying these are the residents of the city. These are the folks who are folks who have invested, made sure that there's a security system, place, a grouping, a gathering, that they all have come together to establish this city. Okay, these are the citizens, if you will. Are they family? Probably. Probably most of them are related to Hamor and Shechem. I don't know that, but that's often the way cities came together back in the day. But my point is that you've got the entire city of men who are willing to go through this process. Now, again, this is not only deceitful and devilish and all of those things wrapped together, but there is quite a brilliance sick brilliance in what these Jacob's sons are going to do with regards to these guys. You know the end of the story, but man, I'll tell you what. So on the third day, evidently 3 days after the surgery has taken place, and they're really, you know how it is with a surgery. Sometimes, it takes a couple of days, and boy, that pain really sets in. We'll watch it. Third day, when they were sore. That's all it says. They're sore. And that, by the way, is not telling you all the details, okay? And I'm not going to do it right now, but they're sore. And so they're sore. Two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, they're going to do the task. Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and came against the city while it felt secure and killed all the males. So two guys are going to go in there and they're going to kill the entire city population of males, which tells you a lot of things. Number one, it of course tells you that these guys who are sore are pretty laid up. They are unable to defend themselves, literally. Okay. It also tells me that the female population has evidently not been allowed or trained to defend themselves or their husbands in this particular situation. Whatever you do, we got to have Simeon and Levi going door to door killing the men. I don't know how else to put it. That's what happens. Because the men are so laid up they can't defend themselves, and so they go in and evidently make easy work of it. Continue reading. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the sword, and they took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and they went away. So they're going to rescue Dinah from Shechem, the raper, the rapist. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered city because they had defiled their sister. And so you got Simon and Simeon. Simeon and Levi are going to do the dirty work as far as, well, that's all dirty work, but they're going to kill all the men. Then it sounds like the rest of the brothers come in and they plunder the city. Well, what does that mean? Well, let the Bible tell you. They took their flocks, their herds, donkeys, whatever was in the city and in the field, all their wealth, all their little ones, all their wives, all that was in the houses, they captured and they plundered that city. Now, I'm not aware anywhere, you can correct me if I'm not aware that this was a pleasing act of God. In fact, Jacob is going to condemn it at the end of this passage. But what you see in this is a tragic moment of revenge that comes about because a tragic moment of carnal passion. The whole story is horrible. It's right out of Shakespeare, although Shakespeare wrote fiction. This really happened, The conclusion then is that Jacob says to Simeon and Levi, the guys with the swords, he says, look, guys, you have brought trouble on me by making me stink to the inhabitants of the land and the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And so, boy, I tell you what you have done today is really is making things bad for all of us. But watch how they respond. He's going to go on and say, my numbers are few, and if they gather themselves against me, attack me, I shall be destroyed in all my household. And then this is the response. The boys say, Simeon and Levi. But they said, should he treat our sister like a prostitute? Is there not going to be justice? All we did, Daddy, was make sure that we brought justice to the land. Now, you can agree, disagree as to whether or not their justice was just or not. But their argument at the end of the chapter is still, Daddy, we did what we felt like we needed to do. Wow. Talk about a chapter, you know what I'm saying? All right, let's see if we can get this thing to advance. There we go. All right, there's your 10 questions that we tried to hustle through. Tough chapter. Remember, this is 34 and 34. I don't know why I did that. Got it? All right, remember, do the doodle. Chapter 34. Boy, I thought Gabriel did a good job on this one. So I hope you'll be able to remember chapter 34. Prayer time, prayer time. Tonight at 7 o'clock, we will have our Zoom church meeting. It's really good. Got folks coming in from all over the place. My buddy from India keeps saying he's going to try to get in there again with us, although he's got to get up at like 4 in the morning to do it. But if you're interested, join us at 7 o'clock. And the way you do that, it's not posted live or anything. It's not even recorded. The way you do that is you got to give me your email address, and then I'll send you an invitation, and you can join us. And I mean, we're all right there sitting, talking to each other. Indiana, Pennsylvania, sometimes India, and there we are talking. It's really, really good. Singing some songs, having prayer requests, etc. 7 o'clock tonight. If you're interested, let me know. We had the great opportunity, Cindy and I had the great opportunity of going to the Memphis area and working with my boy the other day for a day. He's down there living with a missionary family. They're trying to get things all put together so they can get out of here and go off to Greece, where they want to live and be missionaries. And work, by the way, I'm told, with the refugees, Muslim refugees of that area. So it's a really exciting opportunity for them. Gabriel's trying to help them with all the projects that they've got going. And Cindy and I got to go down there and do a little paint. Man, I still got paint on my hands and everything. But it was a wonderful time. Next weekend, we're going to be in Abbeville, Louisiana. Cannot hardly wait. Cindy, Gabriel, and I, all three of us are going to travel down there. I'd love to see y'all. Give a big hug to you. So show up, if you will, to Abbeville. If you want more information about times that we're starting and themes and all that kind of thing, let me know. But all the way down here in Abbeville, that'll be next weekend. Next Sunday, a week from today, we'll begin that particular meeting. And it goes, let's see, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Then in November, I'll be at the Bone Gap Christian Church, and they're celebrating I don't remember. I think it's 135 years anniversary, maybe even more than that. But neat congregation. I was blessed to be there last year. It had a wonderful revival and several responses. And if you're up in that area, come and join me for that one too. Maybe you got it. Maybe you'd like to get in the back into the revival mode. You know what I'm saying? I'd love to come and host a revival for y'all. And so as churches start to get back together and all that kind of thing, let me know. I'll come your way. That'd be fun to spend some time with you and get the hug on you, etc. Do you have any prayer requests? Now's the time to put her in there if you do. One thing I'll share with you that I don't do on Lord's Day Live, but this group here, each one of the major things that we do, in fact, it's the first thing we do during every Zoom service is we have a prayer request time. And we just go around the little squares on the screen there. Everybody, Debbie, for instance, down there in Louisiana, she's a faithful watcher. And I'll say, Debbie, you got a prayer request? And Debbie will say, yeah, pray for this, which we've been praying for her brother-in-law, and her dad. And so remember Debbie's family and the girls as they're off to school, etc. We just go around and we make a prayer list. And then later in the week, I type that thing up and I send it via text message. And then you have something to be praying for with regards to your little, Zoom church group that's scattered all across the world. But that's one thing we do. And perhaps there's somebody today who's got a prayer request. In fact, Debbie just chimed in and said, please pray for those in the path of Henry. Yeah, I have friends up there. That hurricane, I think they've dialed it back just a little bit now, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be destructive as it's hitting the East Coast. So let's remember those in the path of Henry. All right. Anybody else got a prayer request? Now's the time to put them up there. I really wish you would join me. All I need is an email address. Message it to me. Just message it to me. All right, we're going to go into our study, Lord's Day Live. We have been talking about the book of Revelation, and we're almost done. But man, I'll tell you what a marvelous study it has been to go into the book of Revelation. I hope that you have enjoyed it. One of the things that I'm hoping to do is take all of that series, as well as the Genesis series, etc. And I'm going to put them all together, and I'm going to make them available eventually. But we're into the next to last chapter of the book of Revelation. Man, it's been a neat study. Revelation, the climactic chapters, 19 through 22. Really, it's 18 through 22. But as we see these chapters play out, I think you can easily see why they are climactic. When I say 18, is because 18 is really when you begin the endings. You begin the endings. That's an interesting phrase. And we got the great harlot Babylon is going to fall. And then Jesus is going to come riding out on the white horse covered in blood. And we're going to have Satan himself who's going to be thrown into the pit. And he's gone forever. We got the 1,000 years, the binding, all of that takes place up here as well. So this is the endings. But when you get to 21 and 22, we are now into the beginnings. And man, is it good, the beginnings. I hope that you've enjoyed it as I have so far. What have we had? 3 lessons already in chapter 21, and we're still going to be there. Last time we looked at what it might look like to be part of the new heaven and the new earth. And so by way of review, we looked at chapter 21, verse 5. We reviewed it. Behold, I'm making all things new. What might that mean? What might that mean for the new earth? And remember, we went through a list of passages. So if you'd like to kind of let your mind go and enjoy that kind of discussion, pedal back and see that in my last lesson. And then we also talked about what might it be like for us? What might we look like, be like, etc. We compared our new body that we're going to get with the body of Christ, post-resurrection body of Christ, and said, we're told, John tells us we're going to be like him. And so if we're going to be like him, it sounds like we're going to be like these things. And what was Jesus able to do with his post-resurrection body? He ate. He was able to evidently touch people. He walked through walls at the same time. He was able to disappear at will. He could fly. A lot of crazy, awesome things. Neat time last week. I hope that you enjoyed that. Here are your 5 questions for this week's lesson as we're about to launch into these verses. Are you ready? And we got I think 2 major paragraphs that we're actually going to see here. So we got a lot of material to cover. All right. As you go then, transition into verse 9. Then came one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues. You remember the bowls of wrath? Now, I'm not going to take the time to go back and review that, but it's in the series, so you can go back. But one of the angels who evidently had one of those bowls is still on assignment. And his assignment is now to show John the bride. And he's going to say, he spoke to me, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. Well, that went too fast. Didn't mean to do that. All right. So I'm going to show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. So one of those 7 angels, again, 7 complete. How many days of creation? 7. 7th day was when it was all completed. So one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls, he's going to say, okay, let's go look at the bride. And so I'll show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. Now, what I want you to do, we're going to cover all this, but what I want you to do is flip now down to here and to see that he's going to say that on the gates the name of the 12 tribes of the sons of Israel were inscribed. Then you skip down on to verse 14, and it's also going to say, and on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. When you define the bride, who is the bride? We always say the bride is the church. Amen. I agree. All right. But I need you to understand, as a point that I have been making throughout this series, that I am convinced that the church is the ultimate goal of God. I don't believe in replacement theology, but I do believe that there is a process at play. And when we finally get to a point where the Jew and the Gentile finally come back together, that point is called the church. That is the ultimate goal that God wants for us. And notice how that is going to be described in this passage. The church is going to be represented here by 12, but specifically 12 tribes of the sons of Israel. That's the Jew, right? But it's also going to be represented by the 12 apostles, and they represent a time period of transition when the Gentiles come back into the mix. All right. So the church, the bride, is described as a city, a gathering place of the faithful, and those faithful are the church. The church has always been the ultimate goal of God. And I believe that Romans chapter 11 actually bears this out. You, although a wild olive shoot, talking about the Gentiles, were grafted in among the others, now share in the nourishing root of the olive tree. Here's Israel, and here's the Gentiles being grafted back in. So there's a unity, a reuniting that is taking place between the Jew and the Gentile, and that results in the church. Notice the timeline. We got all of humanity that is being ministered to, and then God says at Abraham, he says, look, I am going to have to focus in on one family. And so he pulls Abraham out of the mix, and he says, I will make a great nation out of you and your people. And he does, and that's where the Jew comes from. And so the next 2,000 years, we emphasize and treasure the Jew. But then Jesus comes, and the purpose of Jesus was to reunite that which had happened in the beginning, all of humanity. So Jesus, he doesn't replace the Jew, he adds to the Jew. And so now we have the Jew and the Gentile come together, and they equal the church. The church does not replace Israel through Jesus. The Gentiles are grafted in. The addition completes the return of God to God's original plan to create the church. The Jew plus the Gentile equals the fullness of the called out. That's what the word church means. The church, the bride, which is our context. Okay? And so as we see the entire Revelation story play out, those who would underemphasize the church, I think, need to spend some time with the Lord, because I think the church is actually the ultimate goal of the whole process. When you, again, keep it, what does the word church mean? The called out. Why would God want the called out? It goes all the way back to Adam. What happened with Adam? Adam began his journey into sinfulness, wickedness, all of those kind of things. From the moment Adam and Eve sinned, God has been calling out, asking us to come out of that lifestyle of sin. When the Lord comes, he gives us the ultimate opportunity to make the exit, not by our own goodness, but because of what Jesus does for us. So the ultimate goal has always been the church. You continue reading them, he's going to say, oh, hold on, that it's like we skipped a bunch of stuff. Let's go back and make sure we don't skip all that. Yeah, so notice again, he carried me away to the Spirit of the great high mountain, showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God again. The bride is described here as a city. It's almost like getting your wedding dress measured or something. I'm going to make that point here in just a moment. Having the glory of God, its radiance rare like jewel, jasper, clear crystal, etc. It had a great high wall with 12 gates, and the gates of the 12 angels, and at the gates were the 12 angels. And on the gates, the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, which we already talked about. On the east, 3 gates. On the north, 3 gates. On the south, 3 gates. On the west, 3 gates. And the wall of the city had 12 foundations. Wow. And on them were the 12 names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. So you see the combination between Israel, or Jew, and Gentile here. All right, and then I'll show you that. And now we move to verse 15. And the one who spoke with me, who's the one who spoke with him? One of the 7 angels had one of the 7 bowls of wrath, right? All right. So the one who spoke with me, he had a measuring rod of gold to measure the city and its gates and its walls. So we're gonna get some descriptions of the diameter, not diameter. What's the word I'm looking for there? Yeah, you know, how tall, wide, all those kind of things. Okay. Verse 16. The city lies 4 square, its length the same as its width, and he measured the city with his rod. 12,000 stadia. Its length and width and height are equal. So it's basically a cube. Before we leave this thought of measuring the city, I want to make that point. It's almost like the description is like getting fitted for a wedding dress. Because remember, we're talking about a city in reference to the church. And so it would be like that which covers, the place in which you exist, your tent, your tabernacle. All of those words coming together, almost being synonymous here. And so it's kind of like getting fitted for your wedding dress. And so for all the women who are watching, you ought to get the all overs. You remember that day, and how a woman, is there a day in a woman's life when she tries harder to look her best and all of those kind of things, come walking down the aisle, she's the center of all attention, all of those kind of things. Well, this is put all those emotions together, and you begin to recognize what we are to be as far as the church is concerned. And then we go back to these measurements. This measurement here is approximately 1,380 miles, I'm told. That's what that little D is. And this measurement, 144 cubits, is interesting that a cubit is basically 18 inches. But it is 12 times 12 to get 144. 12 times 12. What we got? 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles. See how we're staying with that particular theme here? Okay. So it's a big place, all right? Now, there are certain religious groups who believe that it's already full, that there's no more room up there, so the rest of us have to go to another place. But whatever you do with that, understand that God is God. We don't have to limit him by our, I don't want to be offensive here, but by our literal translations of everything, having to make everything literal, etc. There's plenty of room for you. The wall was built of jasper, while the city was pure gold, like clear glass. You notice that same idea comes down here in verse 21. and the street of the city was pure gold, like transparent glass. That is reminiscent of chapter 4. Remember going way, it's been a long time ago, but chapter 4, verses 1 and 6, it says, after this I looked and behold a door standing open in heaven. So we're in heaven now, and it says, this is what it looks like. And before the throne, God's throne, there was as it were a sea of glass like crystal. And so this whole transparency, we got these politicians that are constantly going to Washington and say, I'm going to run a transparent, administration. Completely open, and it never is. No, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, it never is. But with God, it is. You know why? Because he has nothing to hide. God is just. God is righteous. God is always righteous. In fact, at the moment that anybody becomes unrighteous, they can't be there. That's why the blood of the Lamb is so very, very important to you and I. The only way we get into that righteous condition is because of what Jesus did for us. And so the whole transparency idea, clear glass, transparent glass. Wow. There have been those, and I've seen some pretty good pictures of folks who tried to show what heaven might be like. And obviously, our little minds can't even begin to process, what it's going to be like. I think there's one thing I can assure you, and that is this. When you see it for the first time, and probably the gazillionth time, your jaw will drop open. You're going to say, wow. And I get to live here. As you move on then, I want to make sure I read it all, okay? The wall was built of jasper, pure, clear glass. I did the foundation of the wall of the city was adorned with every kind of jewel. Remember what we talked about? There's 12 foundations. Remember that? Okay, they got jewels. The first was jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth carnelian, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chrysoprase, I don't even know what that one is, the 11th jacinth, maybe, and the 12th amethyst. So you got 12. The foundation is made of jewels. I mean, it's sort of, oh my. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls, each of the gates made of a single pearl. Now, I maybe making too much of this, but so that's a big pearl. You know what I'm saying? Which comes from a very even bigger oyster. That's one pearl. And it makes the gate. Every gate, and there's a bunch of gates. Every gate is made of one pearl. So now I don't know. What does that mean? Is the pearl hollowed out in the middle so that you can go through the middle of the pearl? Yeah, years ago, you drive out to California, see those big sequoia trees. There's that one you can drive through. Maybe several you can drive right down the middle of. Maybe it's got to be like that. I don't know. All I know is that God is trying to get into my mind that in my place, it takes one pearl, but it's a big one. It's a doozy. It's going to be so good. So each of the gates is made from a single pearl. Wow. Oh, come on. I had one more that I thought. And the street of the city was pure gold, like transparent glass. Just think about this. In heaven, in this setting, the new Jerusalem, they use gold for pavement. They walk on gold. It's the stuff that they just, that covers the ground. If gold is used for pavement, what are the real riches of, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be so good. There's absolutely nothing in this world worth investing so much of your energy and time in it that is going to make you miss this. You got to do what's right. You got to be with the Lord. You got to understand what Jesus did for us when he brought all things together. And now God says, I'm going to make all things new. And you begin to fantasize about what in the world does that even mean? Because that's the best we can do. We've got a few descriptions like this, which are obviously, some of them, very figurative in nature. And all God's doing is he's tantalizing us. He's saying, just dream it out. Let your brain go as wild as you can, and I'm going to double it by the time you get here. It's just going to be, don't miss it for the world. Please. Please remember my ministry in your prayers, that God will continue to provide for us. Some of you who watch this on a regular basis, you're so very generous and kind, and you literally keep us going, literally. I do a lot of stuff during the week, online and beyond. And the only way I could get all of that accomplished is if I had people like you, and I do, who continue to keep us alive. But I'll tell you, we've got some areas that we need to expand into, and we got some areas that we've kind of had to be careful with as far as how we get our money to go there, because some of the things we have to do are very, very important, and yet it's tough as a missionary to America, just like it's tough as a missionary to any other country, to keep people in the loop, understanding what all it takes to get all of this done. Please consider supporting our family ministry, would you? And lastly, Lord's Supper. On the Lord's Day, we're going to stop and we're going to have the Lord's Supper in just a little bit. I'm going here with my family. We get to keep Judah overnight on Saturday nights. It's really a great time. We have a lot of fun. And then on Sunday mornings, the family gets together, Bryce and Victoria, etc., and then they all come together. And we have our own home church. And then around noon, my dad, after he gets done preaching in Marmaduke, he's going to run over here. We're going to have lunch together. It's just really, really a fun time. I think it's what God intended for the family to look like. And we're going to stop and we're going to think. And last week, Judah had one of the most innocent, sweetest communion prayers I've ever heard in my life. I wish you could hear Judah say, "I love you so much, God." It just, I get a lump in my throat. It's so good. I pray that your time together with the Lord today will be sweet, and that He will see the sincerity of your heart as you recognize just how much Jesus means to your entire existence. Thanks for joining me. Sonny Chow saying, be there. Matthew 16:26.